Hello everybody, my name is Luke Mar and this is Hot Mode, and today on Hot Mode we are going to be discussing the LVMH Prize for 2018, all of the finalists in the actual competition, and what the LVMH Prize is and why it's really important to the industry. Before we get into the actual video though, if you guys are looking for a channel that talks about fashion in the most fun, sassy, bitchy, analytical way, this is it. So you can go down below, hit the subscribe button, and turn on my post notifications. What do you have to lose? Also, if you guys like these kinds of videos where I discuss the industry and what's actually happening in it, definitely give this video a like. Also, if you guys want to shop any of the looks that I'm actually wearing in any of my videos, go into the description box and they will all be posted there. And finally, if you guys are looking to see more of me, you can follow me on Instagram at HotLamode. So now let's get into the actual LVMH Prize, what it means, why it's important, and why we should be talking about it. So now let's actually talk about the LVMH Prize, why it's important, why we need to even be talking about it, and what it actually means. So the LVMH Prize is a prize where 7 to 9 finalists are chosen from a really big panel of judges who work within the industry to receive mentorship and a really big cash influx from LVMH. So LVMH, if you guys did not know, is the Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy conglomerate, which essentially owns a bunch of really big fashion brands. Louis Vuitton, Dior, Givenchy, just to name a few. The prize is really important because it does give a small brand or a small designer about 300,000 euros to actually use towards their brand. And essentially it's a way that Louis Vuitton can invest back into the industry, but also it gets their name out there. It's also a really big press moment for not only the small designers who are competing, but also LVMH in terms of being a philanthropy company. So the 2018 prize selected about 9 finalists this year. It's actually quite a lot. I think last year there were 8, and a lot of the finalists are actually design duos, which is really interesting and cool. The 9 finalists were picked by about 48 judges who essentially range in all different parts of the industry. A couple of really famous ones that you probably know are Karl Lagerfeld, who is the creative director of Chanel and Fendi, Bella Hadid, who is the face of Dior, Nicolas Ghesquière, who is the creative director of Louis Vuitton Women's, and Angelica Chung, who is the editor-in-chief of Vogue China. There are a bunch more judges who work in a bunch of different facets of the industry, but it's really good because it's not just designers being like, oh, they're really good. There's actually also business people like the CEO of LVMH's fashion group, Sydney Toledano, who essentially picked John Galliano and McQueen to go to Dior and Givenchy respectively. So yeah, it's a really interesting and cool way that the industry kind of gives back to small brands and essentially kind of cultivates them to learn a lot more about themselves and to learn more about how they're actually going to make their businesses work. It also is really important because it's where a lot of fashion press and where a lot of fashion industry people look to see really new young talent. Some of the most famous brands who have recently come out of the LVMH Prize are Wells Bonner, Jacquemus, Vetements, Marine Serre, and Molly Goddard. Those are some really big names in fashion currently, especially in the youth kind of new fashion cycle scene. So it really does put a lot of names on the map. So now let's actually get into the finalists. There are 9 of them, so I'm gonna, quickly get through all of them, but I'm excited to talk about them because it's a lot of new cool brands that you guys might not know about that you want to follow and want to see them grow as a company or as a brand or as a designer. The first one up is a Cold Wall, which is done by Samuel Ross. It's actually a London-based streetwear company who's really popular in the streetwear hypebeast world. Samuel actually worked for Virgil Abloh, who is now the creative director of Louis Vuitton Men's and owns his own brand Off-White, which is really popular in the streetwear scene too. A Cold Wall describes itself as a staunch symbol and mercurial component of the clashing of class and environment in the British landscape, which I actually think is really interesting and cool because I do see a lot of that streetwear vibe working its way through the British class system, which is a big part of British society. The brand does show both men's and women's wear, but the menswear really is the forte of the brand. Personally for me though, it is a bit underwhelming, especially when you kind of put it next to its peers like Craig Green. The brand doesn't have all that much of its own DNA or a real sense of, oh, that's a Cold Wall, like that I 100% know is it. So I think the brand kind of needs to work on that in order to really push itself out into the fashion industry. I will say though that the A Cold Wall Nike collaboration sneakers were fucking amazing. I really think they're awesome and wonderful. And I actually think that this could be a really cool way that Samuel Ross could move himself into more of a creative field for a bigger... In reality, I wish for the best for A Cold Wall, but I definitely don't think that it is one of the main contenders for the actual prize. Next up is Botter, which is an Antwerpian brand run by Rushimi Botter and Lise Herbruch. I'm sorry if I fucked up those names. It's definitely an interesting pick for a finalist, especially within the LVMH Prize. I have to say it is a very crafty brand, but I think that craftiness is actually really cool and something that no other designer really would even try to take on, so respect to Botter for that. The brand actually won the Year fashion competition in early May, which is another really interesting fashion award for young designers and young talent. I mean, that's definitely a sign that they are going somewhere. The pieces are very reminiscent of that Caribbean make do with what you have sort of feel. You see a lot of really interesting fishing and dyed netting sort of material in the designs, as well as floaty hats and different cool takes on Shell, the oil company's logo. So there definitely is a lot to look at, especially when you're looking at Botter. I just don't know how they will be able to take that really overstyled look and pare it down and make it desirable for a customer. Personally, I think it might need a little bit more time to actually understand how to make it sellable, and so I think maybe in a year or two, if it reapplies, it could do really, really great. Next up is Loverboy, which was started by Central St. Martin's graduate Charles Jeffrey. Jeffrey is actually really loved by the British fashion press and is definitely one of the emerging talents that are coming out of London's menswear scene. This is his second attempt at the LVMH Prize, but they brought him back for another year, so that must mean something. And also, he really reminds me of Alexander McQueen in a way that his shows are really over the top, maximal, even performance based in a little way. His main focus in the pieces that I've seen at stores like Dover Street Market, where he is actually sold, are a lot more demure. You see a lot more interestingly cut suits. You see a lot of shorts and t-shirts. You see a lot of screen printing and painting on the actual suits, along with some cinching of waists and cool, interesting cuts and shapes in the suits. So there is a lot of diversity, but I think that he can actually make the brand work for both fashion people and normal people that just want to buy nicely cut suits. He also won the British Emerging Talent for Menswear Award at the Fashion Awards in 2017, and he was presented the award by John Galliano, so again, that must mean something. I definitely think that Loverboy is actually a dark horse in the LVMH Prize. I think that it's a brand that knows how to get the press that it needs, and also a brand that knows its clientele and knows what it really loves to make. So I definitely could see Loverboy actually getting that shmoney. Next up is Doublet, which is a Japanese brand run by Masayuki Ino. Ino actually studied at the Tokyo Made Fashion Academy and is definitely really looking at streetwear with a big Japanese influence. Doublet is actually originated from a Lewis Carroll game, the guy who actually wrote Alice in Wonderland, and the name Doublet denotes the changing of one thing in order to get another. And whilst a lot of Doublet's earlier collections weren't that great, a lot of his recent pieces are actually really, really smart and really well thought out. I actually personally really love the hoodies and t-shirts that have the deconstructed embroidery. I think they're really smart, and I think it's something that definitely could have a moment in fashion and a brand that could be built on. I can't see it winning the whole shebang, but I definitely think that it will benefit from the press involved. And hopefully a lot of bigger brands or bigger celebrities will help to promote and boost the brand so that it becomes more of a mainstay in the industry. Next up is Eckhaus Latta, which was started by RISD graduates Mike Eckhaus and Zoe Latta. The brand is bi-coastal. It's based in New York and also LA. LA, I believe, is where the store is, and New York is where more of the design and all that work goes on. In my personal opinion, it's actually one of the brands that picked up up the slack of the bigger fashion houses like Proenza and Thom Browne, leaving New York and going to places like Paris or Italy. Eckhaus kind of like kept it all together. The brand also pushes a much more diverse runway and a much more diverse clientele in general. The brand also has started selling jeans, which have gotten a little bit of a rumble, and I've seen them in person. They're really, really nice. I just think that they need to like push themselves a little bit further in order to have like a Brooke Shields Calvin Klein blow up. I think that the brand definitely could bring about a New York fashion renaissance, but I think they definitely probably need that cash influx in order to do that. Next up is Kwaidan Editions, which is another London-based brand and was started by Leah Dickley and Hung La. In my personal opinion, this is probably one of the oddest picks for a finalist because personally I see the brand as very derivative and really needs a lot more work. But e-commerce sites like matchesfashion.com have actually picked them up and really have been pushing and promoting them, so that must mean something. Personally though, I think that the brand needs a little bit more time to find itself and to find a way to really push its brand image out there. I think it needs a collection that really will showcase what the brand aesthetics are. So I'm hoping the best for Kwaidan Editions, but I definitely don't think it will be winning the prize. Next up is Ludovic De Sun Cernin. It is actually a menswear label that has recently announced it's going to be doing a little bit of women's wear as well. The Parisian brand was started by its namesake Ludovic, and it was a brand I really hadn't heard of prior to the LVMH Prize. The brand to me is a little bit Paco Rabanne meets Phoebe Philo for Celine if she was a gay man, in a really nicely lit and somewhat clean BDSM leather bar. The clothing is actually really well done, and a piece that has really popped off are the leather lace-up crotch underwear. The press seem to really fuck with it and are really pushing it, so it's really interesting and cool to see. And I really respect the fact that Ludovic has pushed that the brand will stay with production in France and has actually worked with big fashion brand Repetto to actually make its menswear ballet flats. Overall, I really like the brand and I definitely can see it going far. I just think it probably needs a year or two before it can actually win the prize and really get itself out there, because I haven't seen all that much of it in terms of e-commerce. Rock by Rock Wong is another young label that is actually going for the prize as well. I believe it only has 2 to 3 collections out there. But I like that Rock is really open about who his woman is. She's not really all that comfortable. She's very youthful and fragile, as he said in an interview. But the coolest thing I think about Rock is the fact that he has so much experience within the industry. He went to Central St. Martin's and was under Louise Wilson, who is a legendary professor who advised people like Alexander McQueen, Phoebe Philo, just to name a few. I mean, the majority of those big brands showing during London Fashion Week have worked under Louise while they were at CSM. As soon as Rock graduated from CSM, he was plucked by Phoebe Philo at Celine to go work there, and from there he did a few years at Chloe and then moved on to Louis Vuitton. That's like a good amount of experience and also a good amount of LVMH experience in there too. He is producing most of his pieces in Europe, but wants to push to produce a lot of the pieces in the UK, which I think is really cool. Rock also grew up in South Korea, but then went on to Central St. Martin's. But I definitely could see in a few years the brand coming through and winning and really pushing itself out there, so I wish them the best of luck. The last brand is Matthew Adams Dolan of New York. Matthew Adams Dolan is the designer of the brand. He actually graduated from Parsons. He grew up in Australia, but then moved to New York when he started school. He's done about 3 collections, but put on 2 shows. Matthew Adams Dolan is very similar to Eckhaus Latta because when everybody moved out of New York, a lot of fashion press started to really look at Matthew Adams Dolan and his work. He really focuses on very essential American style staples, so denim, khaki, button-up, suits. It's very interesting, and I really like the way he cuts. A lookbook is probably one of my favorites of his. It has these amazing big blankets and really heavy fabric. I once picked up some Matthew Adams Dolan stuff while I was working for a stylist. And honestly, it was so heavy, but I was so happy to actually carry it. And when I saw it, it was wonderful and amazing. I think a lot of other brands probably have a very difficult time actually integrating and getting people to actually integrate their pieces into their wardrobe. But I think Matthew's way of integrating really simple American basics in cool cuts and ways into their wardrobe is really seamless. And I like that he doesn't use athletic or streetwear as a way to just sell. He understands that building up the American style look is something that should be continued throughout New York fashion. Overall, I am fully supportive of the brand and 100% here for it. I just don't think that it's a brand that definitely will win this year. Again, in a year or two, I think it definitely will wipe the floor with the competition. So yes, that is the last brand or designer we're going to be talking about. Whoever wins, I'm pretty positive I'm going to actually be doing a full what I think, like that Jacquemus video about the brand and like what I think is really going to happen with it. There are a lot of really cool brands here, so definitely check them out. I will link all of their like Instagrams in the comments below in order. Also, tell me who is your favorite of all of these brands. Like, I really want to know, because it's really interesting to see what you guys think and what you guys are drawn towards. But definitely wait on June 6th. That is when the LVMH Prize for 2018 winner will be announced. So June 6th, we will be living our best lives. So yeah, let me know. I'll see you guys in the next video, and TTYL.